In order to evaluate trigonometric functions of quadrant angles, we need to be familiar with the trigonometric identities we learned earlier. Also, recall that the cosine of theta equals the x-coordinate where angle theta intersects the unit circle, and that the sine of theta equals the y-coordinate where angle theta intersects the unit circle. Let's look at several examples. In our first example, we have the cosecant of 0. We know that that's equal to 1 over the sine of 0 due to our trigonometric identities. The sine of 0 is 0 because the y-coordinate where angle 0 intersects the unit circle is 0. Hence, we have 1 over 0, which is undefined because anything divided by 0 is undefined. In our next example, we have the cosecant of pi over 2, which is equivalent to 1 over the sine of pi over 2. We know that the sine of pi over 2 is 1 because that's the y-coordinate where pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over 1, which simplifies to 1. The cosecant of pi is equal to 1 over the sine of pi. The sine of pi is 0 because that's the y-coordinate where angle pi intersects the unit circle. Hence, we have 1 over 0, which is undefined. Now we have the cosecant of 3 pi over 2, which is equal to 1 over the sine of 3 pi over 2. The sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1 because that's where the angle 3 pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over negative 1, which equals negative 1. In this example, we have the secant of 0, which is equal to 1 over the cosine of 0. And the cosine of 0 is 1 because that's the x-coordinate where angle 0 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over 1, which equals 1. The secant of pi over 2 is equal to 1 over the cosine of pi over 2. The cosine of pi over 2 is 0 because that is the x-coordinate where pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over 0, which is undefined. The secant of pi is equal to 1 over the cosine of pi. The cosine of pi is negative 1 because that is the x-coordinate where pi intersects the unit circle. 1 over negative 1 simplifies to negative 1. The secant of 3 pi over 2 is equal to 1 over the cosine of 3 pi over 2. The cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0 because that is the x-coordinate where 3 pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over 0, which is undefined. In our next example, we have the cotangent of 0. Recall from our trig identities that the cotangent is equal to the cosine over the sine. So we have the cosine of 0 over the sine of 0. The cosine of 0 is 1 because that's where 0 intersects the unit circle, the x-coordinate. And the sine of 0 is 0 because that's the y-coordinate where angle 0 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over 0, which is undefined. So the cotangent of 0 does not exist. Next, we have the cotangent of pi over 2, which is equivalent to the cosine of pi over 2 over the sine of pi over 2. The cosine of pi over 2 is 0 because that's the x-coordinate where pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. And the sine of pi over 2 is 1 because that's the y-coordinate where pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. Hence, we have 0 over 1, which simplifies to 0. The cotangent of pi is equal to the cosine of pi over the sine of pi. The cosine of pi is negative 1 because that's the x-coordinate where pi intersects the unit circle. The sine of pi is 0 because that is the y-coordinate where pi intersects the unit circle. So we have negative 1 over 0, which is undefined. Finally, we have the cotangent of 3 pi over 2, which is equal to the cosine of 3 pi over 2 over the sine of 3 pi over 2. The cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0 because that's the x-coordinate where 3 pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. And the sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1 because that is a y-coordinate where 3 pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 0 over negative 1, which simplifies to 0. Go ahead and pause the video now and try these problems on your own. The cosecant of 3 pi over 2 is equal to 1 over the sine of 3 pi over 2. The sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1 because that is the y-coordinate where 3 pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. So we have 1 over negative 1, which simplifies to negative 1. Next we have the secant of pi over 2, which equals 1 over the cosine of pi over 2. The cosine of pi over 2 is 0 because that is the x-coordinate where pi over 2 intersects the unit circle. Hence we have 1 over 0, which is undefined because anything divided by 0 is undefined. Next we have the cotangent of pi, which equals, according to our trig identities, the cosine of pi over the sine of pi. And the cosine of pi is equal to negative 1 because that is the x-coordinate where pi intersects the unit circle. And the sine of pi is equal to 0 because that is the y-coordinate where pi intersects the unit circle. So we have negative 1 over 0, which again is undefined. Recall from our trig identities that the tangent is equal to sine over cosine. So the tangent of 0 is equal to the sine of 0 over the cosine of 0, which is equal to the sine of 0 is 0 because that is a y-coordinate where 0 intersects the unit circle, and the cosine of 0 is 1 because that is the x-coordinate where 0 intersects the unit circle. 0 over 1 simplifies to 0.